My dad gifted me a 3D printer for my 18th birthday, and that's really how this whole thing started. We did not want it to do a startup, we just wanted to solve a problem. Losing any part of your body is not just a physical loss, it is a psychological loss as well. When we started this company, we had absolutely no idea what entrepreneurship and what building a startup is, which is a huge competitive advantage that we have over anybody else. In the digital world that we live in today, unfortunately, patients cannot control their assistive devices in a data-driven and intuitive manner. I was not afraid to give up equity from the very beginning. We want to be the operating system for the rehabilitation industry.
Hello, today is our new episode of Digital Health Interviews, and we continue to introduce you to startups from all over the world in digital health and medtech. And today we have a unique opportunity to talk to the CEO of Aether Biomedical, Dhruv Agrawal. Hi, Dhruv.
Hi, nice to meet you, Alex.
Nice to meet you as well. Before we get to a startup, please tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my background is quite interesting. Both my parents were doctors, and I'm from India. I'm from the central part of India. It was in my destiny to go to medical school. So that's what I did. But I was never really interested in the technological aspect, clinical aspect of medicine. I was always much more interested in the technological aspect of it. So I decided to drop out of my med school after year 2. I did a bachelor's in business administration. I also started to learn programming, electronics, these things by myself. I did a postgrad certificate in medical regulatory from University of California. And then I am currently finishing my master's in data science from University of London. So I sort of have this weird mixed background between partly medical, but then management and regulatory and data science and engineering. But I believe that really helps me in running Aether Biomedical.
That's really interesting. If you don't mind, I have a few clarifications.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, you've graduated already from several universities, and you're currently getting a master's degree in data science in University of London, right?
Yeah.
So is it a remote education?
It's a remote
Full
program.
Remote, right?
Yeah.
But still, how do you have enough time for managing a business and still doing the master's?
Yeah, I just like learning stuff, and I mean, it really does help me a lot. A lot of work that we do in the company is related to what I'm studying, so that definitely helps a lot. And this is what I really love to do. I love to learn more about technology. I love to improve myself. So that's you have to find time for things that you love to do.
True. Do you have already in mind another college you're gonna enter?
I'm thinking about this. Maybe a master's in electronics, because I feel like I'm good with the data science and the software part, but not so good with the electronics bit. So maybe I would like to learn that next. Interesting,
and very impressive. Okay, another question. So when you got that startup idea, it was in India, right?
Yeah.
What was the criteria to choose Poland as the place to start your business?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the first thing that you really need to know is when we started this company, we had absolutely no idea what entrepreneurship and what building a startup is. My background was in medicine, had nothing to do whatsoever with business or startups or venture capital or, scaling and building a company. So the initial thought of getting into prosthetics itself was very organic. My dad gifted me a 3D printer for my 18th birthday, and that's really how this whole thing started. It was a very organic process, and the same thing was with respect to coming to Poland. I did not really make a conscious decision of coming to Poland. It was just the fact that we were looking at opportunities, grant opportunities, non-dilutive funding opportunities that we could get, and we found one here in Poland by the Polish government called Poland Prize Program, and we became a part of it. We came here. It was a small grant, like $50,000 at that time, but was a pretty big opportunity for us. And that's how we came here, and within 2 months, we received our first term sheet from a venture capitalist, a micro VC fund here in Poland called Shape VC, and we just decided to ride it out, and here we are. So it was, but once I landed in Poland, and in 6 to 12 months, I did realize that Poland as a place has a lot of unique things to offer, especially if you compare Poland to the Western Europe, or you compare it to US as a place to build a startup. If I had to do it all over again, I would consciously choose Poland as the place to be.
Interesting. And one more question, you actually started talking a little bit about this. If I understand correctly, you did not work for someone else for a single day.
Yeah, I did some internships here and there, but never had a job. I started this company right after the second year of my medical school. So
how did you make this decision? You know, it's like really rare right now that startup founders start their startups right away after college, because people would prefer to get some business experience, to make some mistakes using somebody else's money.
Yeah.
Than theirs. How did you make that decision? Who supported you? And finally, do you think maybe your company is moving slower because of that lack of experience, or no?
I mean, definitely. So to answer the first part of your question, again, building a startup for us was we did not want it to do a startup. We just wanted to solve a problem, right? We saw that prosthetics are expensive and have certain limitations, and we just wanted to solve that problem. So we never intended to solve that problem in terms of building $1 billion company. It was just a desire to solve a particular problem, and that's why we did not really do a lot of rational thinking in terms of going into, do I have the skill set to do that, etc. So that's I think the answer to your first question, that we did not do any kind of rational thinking regarding what are the pros and cons, or what am I going to miss, or etc. when we chose to start this company. And the second part of your question, do I think my company would have grown even faster if I had more experience? Yes, definitely, that is true. But then on the other side, I don't really think that there's a lot I missed when it comes to not having a job before starting Aether Biomedical, or not having any kind of experience before starting Aether Biomedical. And there are a couple of reasons behind that. First was I was not afraid to give up equity from the very beginning to the correct set of investors, the correct set of advisors, and the correct set of employees who join my company, who can bring the experience that I was lacking. And that's why we are a 40 people team right now, and majority of the people have been with me from day one. Like COO Marta, these people have been with me from day one, and they continue to do so because they have things that they know things that I just cannot do. So I focused a lot on delegating things which I am not skilled at to people who are really good at that. And then second, I also focused a lot on learning. So going to a university, doing a job, at the end of the day, the target is to learn new things, right? And those are not the only ways to learn new things, in my opinion. You can, of course, there's a wealth of information online in the digital media today that you can learn a lot of things from, and you can learn from other people's mistakes. You don't need to necessarily make your own mistakes, right? So that's really what I focused on, and partly that's why I continue to study and improve my knowledge in various fields.
Cool. Finally, let's talk about Aether Biomedical. Could you please tell us, our viewers, what is the startup about, and more about the product? Yeah,
definitely. So we are a medical robotics company focused on building bionic limbs for upper limb amputees. The core technology that we really work on is building a control and communication layer between patients and their assistive devices. Of course, upper limb amputation is the initial target market for us with the prosthetic hand, but really what we are trying to do is fill the gap that exists today between patients and their assistive devices. If I'm to speak in simpler terms, in today's environment, in the digital world that we live in today, unfortunately, patients cannot control their assistive devices in a data-driven and intuitive manner. And these devices are pretty dumb, and they do not give any feedback back to the patient or any feedback back to the clinician. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to build a layer of control and communication between patients and their assistive devices to make this process of rehabilitation much better, and to really make these assistive devices a part of the patient's life and their body. We have chosen to start with upper limb prosthetics as the first field in which we are implementing our technology. So we basically work on three main things. We build sensors which pick up musculoskeletal data, or which pick up these muscle signals which are used to control these type of assistive devices. We build algorithms that process this musculoskeletal data and really make sense of this data. And then finally, we build software that allows us to use this data, use these biomarkers to control various types of assistive devices. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Our current product is focused on the first pathology. Of course, we want to change rehabilitation. We want to make rehabilitation data driven, but it's easier said than done, and you have to start somewhere. So instead of trying to build a global solution from day one, we picked up a specific niche, which is upper limb amputation, as an area to test our core technology, as an area to deploy our core technology, and that's how we ended up in upper limb prosthetics. And so what we are building right now is really a multi-action bionic limb for upper limb amputees. So it's a prosthetic device for patients who have either lost a limb or were born without a limb. It works using muscle sensors, so patients can do different types of actions using these devices, very similar to what they would do with the human hand. At the same time, we are also working on control systems that would allow us to send feedback back to the patient, so they would not only be able to perform actions but be able to get sensory feedback to understand how fast the hand is closing, how fast the hand is opening, how much force it is applying on an object, etc., etc., to really give the feeling of proprioception back to amputees. And finally, the third component of the product suite that we are building is the digital layer, that we are enabling these devices to be much smarter. So the prosthetic is wrapped around with a software layer that is available as a web application for clinicians and as a mobile application for patients. So clinicians are actually able to remotely track how often are patients actually using these devices, what are they doing with these devices, what kind of setting or parameter changes can we make to make the utilization of these devices better. And really the goal here is to be more proactive. So clinicians are able to recognize a problem that the patient is not using a hand or using a hand in an incorrect manner, and be able to solve that before the patient decides to stop using the hand and the clinician gets to know 3 months from today that, oh, you have not used your device for the past 3 months.
Okay, I have quite a bunch
That's
of
a lot to take in.
questions. Yeah, let's start with the first part. Like, for people like me and probably most of our audience without any medical education or anything, can you explain? So basically, the brain of the person sends, like right now to my hand, some signals to move my fingers, and it works exactly the same way with your bionic hand.
I would not say exactly the same way. We are quite far away from achieving what an able-bodied individual is able to do. But we are trying our best to bridge the gap as much as possible. So we don't pick any signals from the brain. Rather, we focus on the peripheral nervous system. So really, when the signal comes from your brain, goes through your central nervous system to your peripheral nervous system to the nerve endings, which then end up in the muscles at the motor unit neuromuscular junctions, and tell your muscle to contract and move in a certain manner. We pick up the signals at that point of the human body. And so basically, even after amputation, patients have residual muscles. So you still have these nerve endings which are firing where the electricity is present, which would have given the signal to the muscle if the muscle was present. But right now the muscle is not there because the hand is amputated, and that's where we pick up this signal, try to decode what would the patient want to do if the hand existed, and make our prosthetic hand do exactly the same thing. Of course, it's easy to fantasize about these technologies, but there's still a long way that we have to go, and that's why as a deep tech company, that's what we're trying to do, is really push the boundaries day after day to get as closer to the human body, able-bodied human as possible.
That's amazing. I've watched several videos that are like 5 or 6 years ago when people just started talking about this technology. There are like millions of viewers watched it, and now it's more like a reality. This is amazing. And you said that you're trying to close the loop. It is going to be in the next version of the product,
yes,
right?
Definitely. So we launched the first version of our product about 1.5 years ago. We have over 100 users across US and Europe. We are currently building the next version, which will come with this closed loop control system, which will have something called a pattern recognition classifier, which basically takes up muscle signals from multiple points, like from 8 to 16 different points, and uses a machine learning algorithm to understand the intent of the user. And then additionally, it also gives the sensory feedback back to the patients regarding the activities that the hand is conducting.
Can you give some examples of what kind of information a person can get from the hand? Like, for example, if I grab a cup of glass, the person will understand that already I'm, even with closed eyes, that I'm holding the glass, right?
Yeah.
What are the examples?
Yeah, so the key differentiator is between something called proprioception, which is we as able-bodied individuals have the ability of proprioception, where we have an understanding of where our hands, our legs, our body is in a three-dimensional space. And that's why we don't have to rely on our visual senses as much to conduct our daily life activities. I can pick up the prosthetic device without even looking at it because I know where my hand is and where this prosthetic device is in a three-dimensional space. Amputees cannot do that because they miss that proprioception ability in the amputated part of their body. So what this system would be able to do is give that sort of feedback back to the patients, because the hand already has a bunch of sensors in it. So it has current sensors, it has IMU units and all these different type of sensors which understand how fast the hand is closing, is the hand closed, is the hand open, what grip is the hand currently trying to do, how much force it is applying on the object, is it rotating clockwise, is it rotating anti-clockwise. So all of these informations will be coded back to the patient in a specially coded pattern. So there's a sensory feedback band that we are developing, which essentially consists of multiple vibrotactile motors. So same thing that you use in your mobile phone, but you have one motor which gives you a notification, and you don't even have to see, and you can understand whether it is a Facebook notification or it's an Instagram notification or it's a message or something from your bank, right? These are things that you are able to decode based on just that one vibration motor, based on the different vibration patterns, intensities and things like that. So basically we are doing the same thing, but instead of one there are 16 motors, and instead of telling you it's a Facebook notification or a Twitter notification, it tells you whether the hand is going right, it is going clockwise and closing, it is going clockwise and closing at X speed, it is going clockwise closing at X speed and holding an object with Y amount of force, etc., etc. So of course patients will have to adapt to this, but we did some internal testing with able-bodied individuals and with amputees, and we see that patients are able to differentiate between 8 different parameters with more than 95% of accuracy with the system that we have developed.
That's fascinating. How far are you from that version already?
About a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. All right. The prosthetic hand is being 3D printed, right?
Yeah.
Correct? Do you think this is like the best approach right now for prosthetic hands?
For prosthetics specifically, I do believe that additive manufacturing is the best approach. Of course, if I look back, when we built the first version of the product, we did make some mistakes, and that's why when you look at the first version of the product a year before and you look at it now, you will see 2 completely different products. You will not be able to recognize them as the same thing. But I do believe that additive manufacturing gives a lot of benefits, especially in the field of prosthetics. It allows you to iterate much faster than subtractive manufacturing. You can actually listen to the feedback of the users and get ready to make changes in your product within a matter of days. And if it was the case of subtractive manufacturing, that would not be the case, because you would have prefabricated molds which would impose certain restrictions on you, etc., etc. Second, it also gives you the ability to personalize the device according to the user, because losing a hand, losing a leg, losing any part of your body is not just a physical loss, it is a psychological loss as well. So we want people to look at prosthetics as not a replacement of a human hand, but something new, something as an accessory that they are able to accessorize and customize according to their need, that could go with their dresses, that could go with their personality and things like that. So really the target is not just to give them the physical confidence, but also the psychological confidence when they use a device like ours, and when they go out in a public space and are able to showcase this. And that's also one of the reasons why we never made those skin covered looking creepy gloves, because we believe that we want patients to be able to showcase the difference that they have in their body as compared to the rest of the world out there. So additive manufacturing can really power that. On the other hand, or on the flip side, there are certain limitations that additive manufacturing has. These type of devices, these robotic hands, are extremely precise devices, and additive manufacturing does pose certain limitation when it comes to tolerances. It's a process which is impacted by various things, such as the temperature during which the 3D print was made, the humidity of the room during which the 3D print was made, and these things have much less effect on subtractive manufacturing. So we still have a long way to go as a community, as a society, as a technological group, in terms of pushing the boundaries of additive manufacturing and bringing it closer to subtractive manufacturing in terms of production capabilities. So that's definitely something that needs to be improved on, both from a company's internal process standpoint and from a 3D printing additive manufacturing process standpoint as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And you also say that one of your, or maybe the main mission of the company is to make the product accessible for basically everybody. How much is the product right now?
Yeah, so the cost of the product really depends on a lot of factors, because these type of devices, people, especially in the Western society, people don't pay out of pocket for these type of devices. They're covered by the reimbursement system. So we are not the ones who set the price of the product. It's generally the prosthetic centers or the hospitals or the clinicians and the reimbursement authority that sets the price of this product. Our product, what I can tell you is, from my side, we sell the device to the clinicians at somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000 US, and the patient can receive it from anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 or even $25,000, depending on the reimbursement system that they're dealing with. But the cost is not just about what you pay on day one for a particular device. And that's what we focus a lot when it comes to expensive products. We focus only on the day one price, but that's a wrong way to look at it. Cost is also a factor of what is it going to cost to repair the device once it gets broken? What is the cost associated with the logistics of that particular repair and things like that? And that's really where we have tried to put down the cost. So our device is repairable by the clinicians at a local level, which is a huge competitive advantage that we have over anybody else. So in our case, we are saving all the shipping costs associated with the devices being shipped from the patient to clinician to distributor to manufacturer and back all the way to the patient. These devices break a lot. With our device, it takes less than 60 minutes of repair time, and we don't charge for these repairs, and these repairs can be done by the clinicians. That's not the case with a lot of our competitors. Another question that comes when you talk about cost is, the price only matters if patients actually end up using the device, because if they don't end up using the device, it costs you much more than just the one-time price of the device. And that's why we have this whole software platform layer which allows you to track the usage of the device by the patients and really empower the patient to use the device more, make changes in the device, make changes in the therapy program according to the current set of the patients, and ensure that patients actually end up using the device.
Mm-hmm. But still, even comparing to most of the competitors, it's like one of the lowest prices.
Absolutely.
Okay. You've said in the beginning that this is like you wanted to start with the upper limb hand, but in future you're planning to create, for example, a bionic leg and stuff like that?
I mean, to begin with, we will stick with the upper body. That's what we know best. So that's what we are definitely going to expand into. And our goal really is to be the brains behind every assistive device on the planet. So we want our sensing technology, our control system technology, our device usage monitoring, and the entire software suite that we are building to be plugged into the assistive devices of various manufacturers and support patients across multiple pathology. So that's what we really want to be. We want to be the operating system for the rehabilitation industry. And we're starting with upper limb prosthetics. Most likely we are going to move forward into upper limb paralysis and upper limb paresis, either by building our own hardware components or by partnering with third-party hardware devices that people have already built. And then we are going to look at more common pathologies, if I can put it like this, such as, pre-surgical rehabilitation, post-surgical rehabilitation, arthritis and things like that, where you don't necessarily use active devices, but you still use passive devices such as orthotics, braces, and things like that. And finally, we would go into just musculoskeletal health monitoring for patients across the various pathologies in the rehabilitation spectrum.
Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about is the team, one of the most important parts of a successful startup. Let's start with your C-level. How difficult was to find really the people who you want to work with, who share the same values and vision, and how much time did it take?
I mean, team is definitely one of the hardest thing. I've been very lucky to find some great people from the beginning onwards. So the accelerator program that we used to come to Poland, I actually ended up finding some of my key members, such as our COO Marta and our VP product Kamil, within that accelerator program itself. So that really gave us a strong foundation to begin with. And then the initial hires that we made were purely based on the intention of this person to join the company. Was it because of their desire to solve this problem, or be technologically infatuated with the technological stack that we want to build? And I think that really propelled us, because after that I did not really participate actively in hiring, because the people that I started working with found the right people after them, and the one after those found the right people after them. So for me, I think after nailing down those initial couple hires, it has been pretty fortunate.
You've mentioned your CEO Marta. I believe before getting the position of CEO at your company, she was an editor-in-chief. So how were you sure that she will handle the operations of a tech company without the relevant experience?
I did not have any tech experience, and I ended up building a tech startup. So I'm the last person who should really have a biased view over someone who does not has a technical experience on paper. So that was never a thought that crossed my mind. And of course, the main thing that I saw was that she was passionate about the problems that we were solving, and she had the hunger to learn. And I think those are the two main characteristics that I would look in a person like that. She's pretty organized, and she's sort of this silent worker who gets things done, and you don't even know about the problems that would have come if she was not there. So when I saw that quality in her when we were in this accelerator program together, it was a no-brainer for me to get her on board.
Let's talk about remote mode. You know that in a software company, basically you can connect to the cloud anywhere from the planet and work remotely. What about the device company? How hard it is to have remote mode?
It's definitely hard, or harder for us as compared to our counterparts who work purely on software-based solutions, because building a medical device, building a hardware device, even if you're working on the software part of it, you have to be connected with the hardware, because at the end of the day, your software is going to impact that hardware element. So we definitely have some challenges regarding this, and it's not just about development. There are challenges that you have to navigate from a cultural standpoint as well, because you want to make sure that your employees or your people who are working in office and the people who are working remotely are able to gel together with each other. So there are definitely challenges that we are working on actively solving, and this has been one of the key issues for us in terms of hiring or in terms of managing our projects and things like that. But I guess that's how it is for so many different companies out there. And with the current project management tools, a lot of the hardware bit can also be done in an asynchronous remote manner. Mm-hmm. So though we try to make sure that we use as many different kinds of tools that we can to ensure a smooth development and bug fixing process. And then of course there are areas that we have to improve, and we'll continue working on those.
How hard is to hire talent itself? With such a high competition in the tech market, especially for you finding hardware engineers with such a specific experience, how hard to find them?
Yeah, in general, hiring is hard. Hiring is hard for anyone. Fortunately for us, we are in a position as a startup where we are able to financially pay people well, so that does help. But at the end of the day, there are limited number of people, and there's just too much demand for the amount of people that are out there. And then there comes the question of, are you solving a problem that is exciting enough? And more importantly, when you ask a person to join the team, we are still in a stage where every individual counts, and there are a lot of people out there who want to make sure that their efforts are known. If you compare it with 1,000 people team or a 10,000 people team, they're just a small part of the whole organization. Whereas working for a company like us, and even for the next 2-3 years, even when we'll grow, I feel that there will be an individual element to the work that every individual would do in the team would have a special value in its own. So that does help a bit. But of course, at the end of the day, for some special cases like digital signal processing or especially hardcore medical device signal processing, there are issues that we face because there's just limited talent available across the globe, not just here in Poland, but across the globe. And for that, to try to mitigate that, we are trying to focus on partnering with universities where we can get people from academia to support us and bring their knowledge onto the table along with our engineers. And additionally, at the same time, we're trying to push our engineers to train themselves into more specific technologies that will be useful for the company in the foreseeable future. And so skill development is definitely an important part where we are able to, rather than trying to look out for every single skill set externally, we are able to foster some of these skill sets internally.
Got it. Going back to yourself, are you doing part of R&D hands-on, or you're just doing purely business processes?
Right now, primarily I focus on the business aspect, especially since we started the US launch at the beginning of this year. I'm still involved in the product development process, but I don't make engineering decisions at all. I'm more like I'm informed about the product development process rather than involved in it. Of course, I have quite a lot of involvement when it comes to the requirements, the product requirements, and the final business validation, but everything that goes in from the requirements to the final product being out there, I have limited involvement in that. And that's why we get more people, right? That's why we expand the team so that we can offload the duties and get people who are actually know what they're doing with those specific things to do those jobs.
Okay, so you've already raised several successful investment rounds. Are you planning to raise more? And when do you think the company should become profitable in order not to use external investments?
So we are going to be raising a series round in the next 6 to 12 months. To answer your question of profitability, that really depends on how you define profitability. We would definitely want to achieve profitability, have an option of profitability if we want to after the next round, whereby if we cut down the R&D and we try to become a sustainable company, we can do that switch whenever we want. So that's definitely an achievable target after the next round of investment. But of course, having said that, our focus as a company is going to be on deep tech and R&D, and we're going to continue to invest heavily on that and expand our R&D team because our focus is not profitability in the next year or so.
Got it. What are your expansion plans in terms of geography in the nearest future?
So we have already entered the US market at the beginning of this year. We got the FDA registration. We have also been approved by Medicare through a process called PDAC approval, which basically makes sure that people who have such social insurance are able to get our hand. So we already made some inroads from the beginning of this year. Now we are in the process of getting as many clinicians, as many hospitals to start using this use hand as possible. We are already in negotiations with some of the largest distributors and clinics in the US to start using this use hand, and the initial feedback has been pretty positive. So that's really the focus that's really our focus next. At the same time, we are working on a smaller version of the hand, this use version 2, that would allow us to impact the European and the Asian geographies. That's something that we will be looking at in the next year. Our software platform, we are looking at launching it within the next couple of weeks. And of course, after that, we are going to continue working on the closed loop control system, the more deep tech research bit that's going to be out there in the next 1.5 years or so.
You mentioned FDA approval very briefly, and it sounded like it wasn't like such a big problem for you, but for lots of startups, it's such a pain to get that approval. Was it really that easy for you?
Yes, we are a class 1 medical device, and class 1 is a FDA registration process rather than FDA approval process. So it's much easier as compared to any other devices which are class 2 or class 3 for sure. And same was the case in Europe. I mean, Europe was even a bit harder for us than US because Europe does have self-certification for class 1, so it makes things easier. But still, you have to go and comply with all the different kinds of norms related with electromagnetic compliance, so like EMC safety, ESG safety, electrical safety, all these different standards that you have to adhere to and things like that.
My last question, there are two types of startup founders. One is that who wants new challenges all the time. He creates a startup, makes it profitable, probably exits or he'll keep some shares and finds a new CEO and then moves to the next startup. And the second type is a startup founder who basically wants to create a company that brings value to people, makes money and makes it profitable and make it like a life-term company. Which type of startup founder do you think you are?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question because I've not faced that choice yet. I've not been at a stage where I can choose between option one or option two. I'd like to think that I'm more leaning towards the second type, the later one. But yeah, when that choice comes, I will let you know.
Got it. In the very end, we ask our guests to give some recommendations to startup founders. What can you recommend to our viewers?
Yeah, the best thing I can say is talk about the mistakes that I made. And the most important thing to focus on, in my opinion, is to really go out and talk to customers. I know it's been said a lot in the media, but I still believe it's worth re-emphasizing it, that talk to your customers. When you have an idea, talk to them. When you make your first prototype, talk to them. Get the product testing process started as soon as possible. Don't wait for a perfect product. Even things on a piece of paper can sometimes give you valuable information. We did make some mistakes like that, and we had to compensate for that by heavily iterating our product after it was launched. So, of course, the ideal scenario is to not do that. And when you launch the product in the market, it's already in a perfect or near perfect state. And the only way to achieve that is to make sure that the different stakeholders who are going to be part of your product ecosystem are involved as heavily as possible in the product development process. And not just in a superficial way, but really in a deep, entangled way where these stakeholders can have an aha moment where they can say, oh, wow, you are going to solve this problem 10x better than what I've been using to solve this problem up till now, and never had this problem solved for me before. So definitely it's important to find out those key features that you're trying to build or key technological advances that you're going to build that are going to give you that 10x, 100x improvement over your competitors. It does not have to be across your entire product. Your entire product does not have to be 100 times better, and that's just not going to be possible. But there has to be bits and pieces in it which are your core technology, which are 10x or 100x better than anybody else out there in the market.
Awesome. This is a great piece of advice. I think really you have a really amazing product. I wish you good luck with your expansion plans and reaching all the goals that you've set. And hopefully we'll can meet in 2 or 3 years and see the progress.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.